Within just the last few hours, this article was posted publicly to the internet by Onision. He also created a YouTube video that communicates absolutely nothing aside from providing you with the link to this article, but I assume because you uploaded that article, many people will see it. The article is meandering and obfuscatory. It conceals more than it reveals. It neither asks nor answers any of the questions you may have. But by contrast, he's had a few very honest, emotionally over-the-top statements on Twitter that I think do a better job of explaining his frame of mind at this stage of his life and career. Here he is saying on Twitter, in case you didn't figure it out, Kai and I are not polyamorous. If you thought you had a chance with us, you don't. You can drop the act. If you aren't here to be strictly friends, you can get out, etc., etc. He had quite a series of statements like this, including really kind of vile and violent statements that he doesn't want anyone to flirt with him. He doesn't want anyone coming to his life as a third party. He doesn't want anyone offering to go on a date with him. He was in many ways overturning the hard work of many years, because he's been working hard for years to set up this kind of three-way polyamorous life. They briefly achieved it with this young woman named Billy. That was a huge drama when that fell apart. And they tried very hard with one woman after another to replace the role Billy had played, to date other people, to bring other people in their life. But he's been stating, again, not in the most calm and measured way, that he's completely done with this now. He's been broken, or he's been, we'd say in English, scared straight. Quote, polyamory is what happens when you think you want more. Monogamy is what happens when you realize everything you wanted has been right in front of you the entire time. All right, he can try to be a romantic about this, okay? But we have seen all the stages he has gone through. And you know what? One of the morals of the story is, as I've said again and again on this channel, polyamory is not for everyone. Open relationships are not for everyone. And this entire drama has played out during a period of time in which Onision and his wife, who later became his husband, they had first one child and then two children. I think no matter how highly motivated you are to have an open relationship or live a polyamorous lifestyle, I think you should recognize that when you have kids, like 15 to 20 years, you're going to be living a de facto monogamous lifestyle. I mean, it's so irresponsible to prioritize your own sex life over family and job and other things. Once you have kids, unless you get divorced and live separately, then there's some time for you to pursue your own sex life. And guys, I mean, I know some people try to talk themselves into these things. Like, oh, well, I could still go on separate vacations. Like, no, you can't. No, you can't. No. You can't, all right? When you're raising kids and they're in school and you have a job, when you have a vacation, that time is devoted to your kids, period. That's your priority. And if you instead say you're going to leave your kids behind in a daycare center with a babysitter or something to go off and sleep with other people, guess what? You're a bad person. There are so many reasons why open relationships don't work for people, but this is one of them. Now, their attempt, Onision and Kai, their attempt to square the circle, their attempt to make something impossible possible, was by incorporating these other women into their lives, having them live in their homes, and having them even work as babysitters.
He's always trying to save people. He's really such a saint.
Hello? Oh, hey, Maddie. Oh, he was mean to you again? Yeah, why don't you just move in with me?
Yeah, just like, I'll pay your rent, don't worry about it, I'll feed you. You don't have to clean up after yourself or like worry about any kind of responsibilities. Yeah. Well, yeah, I would help anybody. Of course. No, I don't have to ask Lainey. It's fine.
This is an especially telling screenshot. This is private correspondence that's been shared publicly by the woman pictured on the right. She has been mentioned on this channel before in discussing Onision. I think her story is indicative in many ways, even though basically nothing happened. She was another one of the young women that Greg Onision tried to recruit to be the third party in their supposedly triangular bisexual relationship back when his wife identified as a woman. So here she is as Laney-bot, and obviously she's in the middle of complaining about people saying disparaging things on the internet. At the top, she comments, "Not really, I'm desensitized." And there you have, circled, circled in digital ink. Here she is, not just publicly, but privately, in a private conversation with someone who's a potential romantic partner, completely dismissing the idea that she's having a sexual relationship with Sarah. And Sarah is at this time under 18 and living in their house as a kind of live-in babysitter. Right, here she is just dismissing as ridiculous the idea that she herself has a sexual relationship with Sarah. And moreover, she's dismissing as ridiculous the idea that she's waiting for Sarah to turn 18 before she can be put into the role of having sexual relations with both her and Greg. And we all know now, in retrospect, that is precisely what happened.
And there was no question, Sarah, that they knew you were underage, that this started at around 11, 12 and continued. And at this point, we're talking about now you were 14 years old. There was no question there. There was no role playing where they thought you were actually 18, anything like that.
No. The first private message that Kai ever sent me was, "Hey, Sarah, how old are you?" And I was like, "I'm 14.
And do you end up having a relationship with Kai?
Kai and I never technically dated, but we did have a sexual relationship.
And how long did this come before your sexual relationship with Greg, with Onision?
No, it happened at the same time.
So you were with both Greg Jackson and Kai in a sex triangle, essentially.
Yes.
Did this attention flatter you, the fact that they were getting back to you and communicating with you directly?
Yeah, no, I was definitely like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that they want me to. They were just like, they were like giving me so much attention, and I was so young and so infatuated with them, and so it made me feel so special and like, oh my gosh, like this is like meant to be. They're so nice, and I kind of just looked up to them in a way. It wasn't really a sexual thing. It was just me like having like an idol.
You had contact with somebody who was, in your mind, a celebrity. Is that fair?
Yeah. Oh, no, definitely. And it was like at the peak of his career, too, is when Kai and I started, the peak of Greg's career, when Kai and I started talking. So actually, the first time I ever saw Greg on FaceTime or something like that, I was on FaceTime with Kai, and I was 14. And Kai, as soon as Greg came in the room, turned off the phone and hung up on me. And he said that he was worried about Greg knowing that he had a 14-year-old friend.
The statutory age in a lot of U.S. states in 16, including Washington State, where you claimed to have lived, just saying. How come no one can ever say anything correctly? No one can type things in just English. English is hard. Hey, he isn't breaking the law. Is any of it your business? Is he guilty of almost breaking the law? I'm just here hoping to see your tits. Ah, yes, the intelligence of internet comments. Whether or not he's breaking the legal age of consent is unknown. What is known is that he preys on very young girls and grooms them until the point of them being legal. As soon as they become legal, he sleeps with them and then discards them.
A couple days after the ILA accusations came out, we just had a sort of like phone sex, I guess. And so after that, things just went like from 0 to like 100, and we were like talking like sexually. They were like talking about me while like doing stuff and then telling me about it afterwards. And it was just like, so I went there on this trip, and I was just kind of like, okay, like this isn't actually going to happen. Like, they're all talk or whatever. And then we were watching a movie again one night, and like, I look over and I see Greg and Kai like making out, which they'd done in the past, like made out with me on the bed. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. They're like, I'm going to watch the movie. And then I looked back, and they were like actively having sex. And I was like, So I just decided to like mind my own business and not not say anything, just like keep my eyes on the movie. And then Greg kind of pulled me in and told me to start doing stuff with them.
And you were 18 at this time, so technically this is all legal and you were able to consent.
The most shocking and most recent controversy was their relationship with Sarah. And I just want to say, to my knowledge, they never legally adopted Sarah. That's a misconception. However, there were many public statements on the internet where they said that they considered her to be like an adoptive daughter, that they considered her to be, you know, someone they would never have a sexual relationship with. They said that again and again and again. Onision said it just a couple of days before he did have sex with her when she had just turned 18. They made many, many public statements that their relationship with her was platonic, if not parental in nature. And here we have a statement from Sarah saying, you know, during this period of time when she signed a non-disclosure agreement with him, Kai, so that's Onision's husband, Kai was born a biological female, formerly his wife, now his husband, etc. This was when Kai was still the adult in control of my teenage bank account that had all of my money in it. Sarah here says, I'm not anti-Onision. I'm the girl that was, quote, like a foster daughter to you, close quote. I'm the girl whose self-esteem you broke down for years. I'm the girl who you built back up weeks before my 18th birthday so you could have sex with me. I'm the girl who finally snapped. My name is Sarah. So... all right. Again, I recognize that Onision obeyed the letter of the law, but the impacts on this young woman, you can hear it from her perspective now. She just did a lengthy interview talking about it from her own perspective. She got deeply involved in their lives starting at age 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Those are years in which people change. And those are years where your experiences, including your romantic experiences, doubtless change you. Although it is not the main point of this video, I do just want to pause to draw attention to the fact that if you read Onision's long, meandering, self-pitying article about what happened between him and Sarah, you note that he reproaches her for exactly this. He points the finger at her, and his main complaint is, you changed. He goes so far, it's the most maudlin thing imaginable to complain, I don't even know who you are anymore. This is the girl who you said it was like an adoptive daughter to you. It was like your foster daughter between ages 16 and 18, right? Right? If you're involved with 16-year-olds, if you're involved with 18-year-olds, guess what? They're going to change, right? Now, there are two types of change. One, they actually profoundly change in who they really are as a human being. And two, the side of their character they show to you, the person they are that's knowable to you, that's broadcast to you, that can change even more dramatically, right? I mean, guys, some people watching this video may be 18 years old right now. If you're a little bit older, it may be difficult for you to remember just how much you changed year by year and month by month. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Those are years of big dramatic changes. And again, they're changes for who you really are. And they're changes for how other people see you. You may have changed a lot over 2 years, but then other people don't recognize that change. They don't realize that change until all of a sudden you have some kind of conflict. It's like, look, I'm not that kid who took ballet lessons anymore. I'm not that kid who used to play Sega Genesis on the couch anymore. That's how you remember me. That's who I was a couple years ago. But things have changed. So anyway, I mean, obviously, as always, the combination of Onision's sense of moral purpose and his fundamentally self-pitying and self-centered view of the world is really incompatible with the horrible facts of this situation. He can't just come out and say he did wrong. He can't just come out and say he wished he'd done better or wish he'd had a better option or something. Now look, I currently am in a relationship with a 26-year-old woman. And if someone were to say to me that hypothetically my whole life would be better if I were instead in a situation with a 36-year-old woman, someone 10 years older than my girlfriend, It's irrelevant. I mean, all I can say is, well, you know what? You got lemons, make lemonade. You work with the people you've got in life. And there's this really weird reluctance in the 21st century for people to just admit that they've done something bad or wrong or evil, and maybe to admit that was the best they could do. For the sake of this video, hypothetically, let's say she's 19, all right? I would not make any of these bullshit excuses. I'd just say, yup, this is bad and terrible and wrong, and guess what? There were no 36-year-olds who wanted me. This was my circumstance. It's bad. You got lemons, make lemonade. This is the best I could do. And that's it. And I would admit all the disadvantages of the situation. Believe me, a lot of people resent it. Even my current relationship, again, she's 26 now. She's not mature for her age. She's not a 26-year-old who's as mature as a 30. She's not. She knows it. Whatever. It is what it is. She's grown a lot. She's learned a lot in this relationship. But, there have been a lot of friction and a lot of suffering and a lot of sorrow. Okay? But, there's a sense in which Onision is throwing away every possible reasonable excuse because he wants to cling to his sense of moral superiority over his audience, his sense of moral superiority over all of the women he quote-unquote rejected, because he has to imagine the history of every relationship as being one in which women pursued him, and he wasn't really interested in them, or he suddenly decided he wasn't interested in them, and then he rejected them, and then he has this sense of moral superiority because he rejected them. This is the turning point in the article here, in just two relatively brief screenshots. Step one for Onision is leaning on this idea of rejection. So he claims all of these insane and untrue allegations against him reflect the psychological power of these women experiencing rejection. It's deeply dishonest, but the sense in which he's being honest is that this makes sense to him from his perspective. He actually believes this. And of course, the irony is, in many of these cases, the rejection really did go the other way. And what he's demonstrating is just how sensitive he is to rejection, how he lashes out again and again when he feels rejected or when he actually is rejected sometimes. All right? And now here's step two. Quote, what is important to note is that Sarah has accused us of being physically intimate with her while she was an adult. Right. So that is reality from Onision's perspective. It's as shallow and simple as that. There are no other considerations. Step one is he rejected her. Step two is it was legal, therefore it's moral. Nothing else is going to be admitted into consideration here. Nothing. And on this basis, he completely asserts his moral superiority over the women he slept with, over the audience, over everyone. End of story. He complains repeatedly that all of the women in his life have changed their story after they broke up with him. Yeah, but you know what, Greg? When a woman is in love with you and she only says flattering things about you while she's in love with you, and then she quote-unquote changes her story afterwards, the version of the story afterwards, even 10 years afterwards, it might actually be more accurate. It might actually be more reasonable. This guy, Onision, with absolutely zero humor, he digs up a quote from Billy, the blue-haired girl they were in a relationship with briefly some time ago, where it's like, oh, well, here's Billy saying that there was nothing inappropriate about their relationship with Sarah. Like, oh yeah, good pull there. Way to dig up that quotation. Dude, that doesn't prove your innocence. It only proves that all the people who were close to you in your life were forced to repeat your public relations mantra. The same way, there's another YouTuber, Billy the Fridge, even some of the men in his life, they had to repeat, the politically convenient half-truths and half-lies to justify this guy's crazy sex life and keep certain private things private and so on. And that's exactly why now there's an avalanche of public criticism and disappointment, because you lied to everyone, and you lied again and again in this smarmy, self-centered, self-satisfied, morally superior, sanctimonious way. You came out, you made those videos, Onision, in which you said that you would never have anything romantic to do with Sarah. You said it again and again and again, and then days after she turned 18, you did have something to do sexually with Sarah. So naturally, the public is going to feel betrayed. And she now, I think she's now 19, she's now looking back at the last 5 years of her life, and she's feeling betrayed. She's feeling let down. So again, not the main topic of this video. I think there are also a lot of very tough questions to be asked with this so-called open relationship paradigm, all right? Onision has a primary partner. They're raising kids together. If you bring in this 18-year-old girl, are you going to have kids with her also? Is she really going to be equal? I mean, there's an inequality created by age. There's an inequality created by financial circumstances. You know, she's younger and poorer and less powerful. There are all these different problems. But also, like, dude, if you commit to this, like, dude, if that's your lady, so what? Is she going to have 2 kids with you also? Are you all going to live in a house? Are you really going to be equals? Are you going to be equals deciding what you eat for dinner that night? And note, man, one of the few things I can say about Onision, he has been a really sincere advocate for vegetarianism his whole life, and to some extent, inconsistently, an advocate for veganism. And you can see here, I'll throw up some screenshots. There's a huge source of conflict between him and his current wife, who became his husband, right? And guess what? It's a huge conflict with all these chicks he tries to bang, all these chicks he invites in to be his live-in babysitter, live in his house, and become to some extent his second simultaneous wife in this triangular relationship, right? Because all he cares about is that these girls have a pretty face. He doesn't give any consideration who they are morally, ethically, even religiously. Because, I mean, he's also an atheist, and he's been romancing even true-believing Christians and stuff. And they're all meat eaters. None of them even have vegetarianism in common with them. None of them even have making YouTube videos in common with them. Anyway, the guy is shallow to a fault. And again, not the main topic of this video, but I think there's a really interesting thing to examine, that morally, I think there is an onus on us as both men and women to care about more than just a pretty face. You're not supposed to just love someone for the way they look. You're not supposed to just choose someone for the way they look. Whether you're a man or a woman, it's an interesting moral, obligation you have to actually care about things that are more than skin deep. Maybe you can only care to a limited extent, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that means you have a moral obligation to sleep with people you don't find attractive. But yeah, you're supposed to be doing more than just flipping through Facebook friend requests and Twitter alerts to see who's got the prettiest face and then offer them an airplane ticket and status as a live-in babysitter in your guest room, which is what Onision and Kai did over and over and over again.
Yeah, why don't you just move in with me?
Yeah. Yeah, just like, I'll pay your rent, don't worry about it, I'll feed you.
This whole controversy at every stage, including even the current interrogation of Onision's ex-girlfriends and survivors, them giving these long public interviews reflecting on their experiences. At every stage of this, I think we've had cause to reflect on the extent to which all of us are transphobic in the most profound sense possible. Right? There's an interesting little thought exercise we do in political science and political philosophy, which is, hey, let's reconsider this scenario thinking in terms of responsibilities rather than rights. Okay? It's very easy to state the case for trans rights. And then it gets more complex and nuanced if you start talking about transgender responsibility. Right? This young woman, formerly Lainey Bott, who made the decision to identify as a man using the name Kai, all right? Obviously, she was interested in the type of sex life she could have once she transitioned and became male. Obviously, she has put a lot of effort, a lot of time and energy, and even a lot of money into seducing women in her new role as a self-identified trans man, etc. Okay? I don't think she's given any thought at all to the responsibilities she would have in taking on the role of a man and in taking on the identity of a man. There was a comment from Sarah. So Sarah's the younger woman who's now giving interviews talking about basically how horrible her life has been, being dominated by Kai and Greg together. There's a comment from her where she said that she never really told her own father what had happened with Onision and Kai, but that if she did, her father would want to take revenge against Onision and that this would be a terrible thing. She claimed her father was some kind of tough guy. I think U.S. Marine Corps veteran. illustrated the fantasy, the revenge fantasy for people in the audience in making this comment. No one's talking about Kai being responsible, right? Everyone just thinks, oh yeah, you can just change your wardrobe, change your outfit, change your hair. And, it's understandable that the trans rights paradigm is mostly focused on transgendered people, avoiding various forms of oppression and even inconvenience that are created by society. That it should be possible for a transgendered person to not get fired from their job because they choose to transition between genders. Completely understand that. Completely understand that that's like the first order of business, especially if you live in a very homophobic culture or very transphobic culture, to address the trans rights element. Okay, what about the trans responsibility element, right? Kai, formerly known as Ladybot, is this fantastic example of someone who takes on the male role and starts instigating these relationships, starts seducing these women. Sometimes the seduction transpired over years. She put years of work into talking to these women by, Twitter message and Skype and what have you, and drawing them into her life and then buying the airplane ticket and bringing them into their home. She had long-term game, right? She's bringing these women in. She's making them babysit her kids. She's making them act out her sexual fantasies with her and so on, right? Okay. But absolutely nobody is looking at this situation as if moral accountability, as if the responsibility rests on Kai's shoulders. So in a world where everyone seems to want to blame everyone else, I think it's interesting to examine the implicit transphobia in the fact that nobody is blaming Kai, or no one's holding her accountable to the same extent as they'd hold Greg accountable. I think fundamentally because we all know Kai can't get someone pregnant.
Dun, 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 dun.